Peanut Butter, if you can. Oh, it sounds good? That's good. Peanut Butter, this is one of the devs from Assault Android Cactus. He's the artist and programmer.
Yep.
So, I'm gonna get started playing through the levels and stuff, and I'll ask you questions, and we'll see how this goes.
All right.
So,
Fantastic.
when you guys, so you and, is it Santana? Is that, or
Uh,
Sanatana? Is that how he's, I don't,
Normally it's Sonadan, but you can also call him Nart. He tends to go by that a
Not.
lot.
Okay,
Yep.
so you and
Yeah.
Not, you guys worked for Sega in Australia with
Yep.
Jeff, um, and then you decided to go indie, and
Yeah.
you made a couple other games before, from what Spidey has told us, like Antibody.
Yep. Yep.
Now I haven't actually seen Antibody, but Spidey did the music for it. The music sounded actually really good. Um, how'd you guys decide on like a twin stick shooter arena game, basically?
Uh, well, I actually I chose a twin stick shooter because it seemed such a kind of a basic action type. I wanted to
Yeah,
focus on something that was going to be really. I'd worked on a puzzle game before that
yeah,
I liked, but I felt not so much went over people's heads, but ended up being a little bit kind of weird. So I wanted to go back to something really kind of straight up pure actions. You know, that kind of first person shooter, twin stick shooters. They're very pure in their concept,
yeah.
and just to see what I could do with that, like yeah.
So start simple before you guys try to, bite off something too big.
Yeah,
All right.
and there's a lot you can find out by going back to kind of basic arcade gameplay styles as well.
Yeah, and it's definitely not like your average like general twin stick shooter because you definitely have some mechanics that are kind of interesting. Like the battery as your only death mechanic is very interesting. Basically, for those watching and not just listening, there's a battery in the top of the screen that slowly but surely runs down as you go through. And the only way to replenish that are those little green battery things. So you have to stay close to your enemies or you won't be able to get those pickups, basically. Which is kind of interesting because most twin stick shooters are, kite your enemies around and try to avoid going near them at all. So how do you guys come up with like all the power-ups, mechanics, and things for this game? Like, where'd you guys start? What did you like draw inspiration from and stuff?
Well, I mean, the original inspiration was probably a lot of top-down shooters. Actually, the original concept for the pickups was, the way they spiral, they change through color,
Yeah.
was similar to how something like Raiden or a lot of twin stick shooters, even things like that treasure top, sorry, this side scroller, Gunstar Heroes
Mhm.
would let you kind of pick your power up. I kind of
Yeah.
like that concept. That was a starting point.
Yeah.
A lot of the a lot of the mechanics then came out of finding what was working for gameplay and what we wanted the player to do. You mentioned the battery mechanic, and
Yeah.
that was an interesting evolution early on in the prototype,
Yeah.
where we had the game working. Obviously, the controls were tight and things were feeling pretty good, and you could shoot all the enemies. And we realized that the game was descending. Well, when we played the game, it was exciting and amazing, and all the stuff would happen. But when we
Yeah.
put the control into other people's hands, they would kite the enemies, fall back, wait behind corners, and
Yeah.
basically play in that very defensive way that you see a lot of twin stick shooters get played. And we
Mhm.
started thinking, what could we do? Like, you could penalize the player pretty obviously. You could just figure out when they're doing that and take points or something. But what could we do that would actually change the game at a fundamental level to flip it on its head? And
Yeah.
our solution to that was the battery. And there's a lot of other things like that, like the way the pickups drop and you actually have to go get them.
Yeah.
They'll time out. A lot of things are supposed to force you to either move around or consider your location. So there's forces pushing you back and forces pulling you forwards. And we kind of wanted to keep that tension going throughout the game.
All right, that's definitely a cool way of going about it. And and from what I've heard, you're definitely going on like try something, see how it feels, and if it feels good, stick with it. From what I understand.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of gone through the bulk of our iteration at this point. We're feeling pretty good about where the game is, but early on, we definitely like we're willing to throw away entire mechanics. You know,
Yeah.
I had a shop system working at one point. I stripped it
Okay.
out in one weekend. It was
Yeah.
heartbreaking, but the game's better. So
Yeah. So right now I'm playing as Starch, which is the only current unlockable character. So each of the eventually 8 assault androids have unique primary and secondary weapons and um, like a unique art style all their own. And I'm actually going to go to the android select to show off all the ones currently in the game. So this is Starch, who has a laser that gets more powerful the closer you are, and these seeker missiles that you can shoot. It's your secondary. This is the main character, who's Cactus, who has a assault rifle and a flamethrower. There's Holly, who has seeker shots and a cannonball, which is actually really fun to just sort of go bowling with the enemies. There's Lemon, who's got a spread shot and rockets, and there's Coral, who's got a shotgun and a plasma field. And each of these guys or girls is very unique and feels a lot different when you're playing. And how did you guys go about determining like how you were gonna make each character feel different?
originally, we actually had a weapon select mode where you'd choose your primary and secondary weapon.
Yeah.
And we had that for a while actually, and eventually we realized that it would we had more control over the experience if we actually paired them together.
Mhm.
Interesting combinations.
Yeah.
And so we started off with basically a collection of different weapons, and each of the weapons was trying to be a different role. You know, not have much crossover with the other weapons, like spread shot versus a machine gun. It has different roles and different strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. So there was no
So-
synergy originally. It was more just like you had a primary and a secondary, and
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah.
okay.
But what it meant is that when we came down to assigning weapons to individual androids, that we had a lot of choices and we had a lot of variety built in from the start. So it gave us a really broad kind of sweeping range of weapons to choose from.
Yeah.
And we're keeping that going with the other androids as well. We want every weapon to feel kind of unique. The closest we've got so far is the laser and the machine gun. They both feel that kind of straight fire. But
Yeah,
then
the laser's definitely very cool, and Starch is actually one of my my favorite characters to play. And you kind of use the laser like a lance, and you run up and you kill the guys like that. And it's
so
very counterintuitive from how you'd think the laser would work.
that was our twist on the laser, because otherwise it starts becoming basically a better machine gun. So giving it the proximity effect was yeah.
So that's
Doesn't
definitely really
make
cool.
sense to use laser.
Someone in the chat's asking, what is the story behind each of their names?
Yeah, so Cactus was called Cactus because she's got green hair. it's
It's a good way to decide.
yeah. So when it came, and she predated all the other characters. She was like an existing character of mine.
Yeah.
And when it came to designing the other ones, I wanted to keep the theme going. So we're just trying to come up with different plant-based names that had a color associated with them. And be
Yeah.
a bit creative, not just name them all after flowers, because that's a bit too easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Holly is like a kind of berry. Starch is like the stuff that keeps plants rigid together
Yeah.
and stuff. So that's pretty
Potato.
cool. That's definitely not what I expected it to be. I thought you were just going with like random plant names and moving on. That's kind of interesting. So who decides the names, and like who's the one that decides, which name goes with the character you draw and stuff? Is that you, or is that
It's generally me.
Yeah.
I tend to brainstorm a lot of ideas and bounce in excitedly in the morning and go, what if we call it this? And
Yeah.
Nat will be like, all right.
you just wake up and you're like, I have to use this idea. Gonna freak out.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the roles on the team as well, because we get questioned about this a lot. Nart's real strength for this is he is a master of game balance and understanding the implication of design decisions. Like he was a designer
Yeah.
at Sega, and he's really really good at that. sometimes when I mention that I'm doing the art and the programming, there's like this kind of thing of like, well, what's the other guy do? And it's like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Kind
you
of
sit there behind the desk
together.
and you're in a completely separate section of the building, and you see when the game is complete, like when they tell you to make this character do this, and you don't really see what actually goes on over there when you're in like the big box office buildings.
I've always Sega was open plan. Most games
Yeah.
companies are. Yeah, they tend to. It's funny. I've always been on the yeah, managers sit in an office, but well, the guys working on the game are generally out on the floor.
Yeah. So what was like the biggest adjustment when you guys went indie?
Ooh, it was tricky trying to keep some semblance of working hours. I think that was
So keeping everyone like actually working instead of like.
well, just that sense of like waking up on time and going, all right, this is work time. This is not, because there's suddenly you kind of lose that sense of that. I think the other thing for me was just the fact that everything feels like it's I'm responsible for so much more.
Yeah.
In a large team, there's generally I generally worked as an animator, so
Yeah.
there was someone was making the characters, someone was making environments, someone was doing the rigging even. Once you get onto like PS3, Xbox 360 games,
Yeah.
and I'd be doing the animation, so I'd be responsible for quite a lot, but not. There's all these other people that were like taking and giving and handing things off.
Yeah, you were sort of, you got your work plopped on your desk and you didn't have to do anything but your one specific job with it.
Yeah, and the game would
Yeah.
keep improving regardless of what you did. Like, you could actually pretty much do nothing for a day and come in and find changes again because other people are working on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously now that I'm on this, pretty much if I want something to change, I have to do it. It's me or not. Or
Yeah,
and it's
you
a,
have
it's a
to.
very different feeling. I went away for a few days for a game conference, and obviously everything that I was responsible for just stopped because
Yeah.
it does.
You came back and you were real surprised the game wasn't any different.
But
Now,
yeah, you get-
actually, I just sort of noticed this when I went to fight the first boss. There's different text depending on the character. Like the boss reacted to that Starch was there instead of one of the other androids, because you actually unlock Starch by beating the first boss.
Yeah, she's Starch is a bit of a what do you call it? A dark horse.
She
She's
seems a little interesting.
yeah, but yeah, there is a storyline running through the game. It's gonna be light, but I kind of want it to be like you kind of arcade game storylines where there's opening
Yeah.
text of enough to keep you sort of interested without really getting in the way of things.
So do you
And
think
yeah,
there will eventually be like an opening cutscene and stuff that like sets the story, or do you think it'll
Yeah.
still be like you're dropped in at the tutorial the way it is now?
No, the tutorial actually seamlessly switches into the planned cutscene, so that's going to be interesting.
Oh, okay. That sounds actually really cool. So there are bosses in this game, and currently there's 2 in this release, and they're very, very unique, both of them. I won't spoil what the second boss is until I get there, but at least that boss, he's sort of like a bullet hell. You're just trying to avoid the patterns of bullets and the rockets. And I'm assuming that's where you got the inspiration for his moveset, but how are you going to keep, all, I guess, 4 or 5 bosses you're going to have by the end of it, interesting and unique?
We've got a big box of ideas, really.
Yeah.
The main when I'm designing a boss, I'm mostly thinking about themes and things that we haven't necessarily done before. I think like you can see where that's going with Vespula, for instance. Trying to find also because as you're going through the levels, we're adding new enemy types in and we're adding new things to deal with. So the bosses are supposed to reflect up and coming things and also things you've just dealt with. That's why if you look at Embryo, he's basically about bullet patterns and also introduce rockets, and then rockets show up in World 2. So there's this kind of building and increasing use of the palette, I suppose.
So eventually, once I guess you get to the next couple tiers, because I haven't played past the second boss, but the second boss has the swarms of enemies and stuff. I'm assuming that like it'll be more huge swarms and less you know, what it was at the beginning, where there's just a couple enemies on the screen, and it'll be a lot more clustered up.
Well, we want to keep a mix, but we want to introduce like swarms and use more of them. Like you can start seeing in World 2, we introduce like the wasps. Like here we go.
Like I'm fighting right now. It's giving me a huge chain for all that leaderboards.
Yeah. Well, one of the most interesting things about the twin stick as a genre, actually, going back to what you asked originally, was there's a real danger of the game becoming stale or repetitive.
Yeah.
It's just innate in the style of game. It's innate in anything that's, I think, pure action based. If you make a Doom like shoot 'em up, you're in danger of it becoming a bit one note, because there's this, and we're super conscious of that. So a lot of our decisions are actually trying to find ways to help with that fatigue, or find interesting ways to mix up levels in ways you're not expecting, and also to be able to keep changing things up even while being 100% action based.
Yeah, so finding new ways for your mechanics to interact and do things that like aren't the same over and over, and keeping the player base from saying, oh, this is great playing through it once, but what's the reason why I want to go back and play the same thing over and over again for that high score?
Yeah, and even so, making sure that like, you know, level 20 is interesting compared to level 5.
And you definitely do a lot of cool things for that. Like there's definitely a lot of neat stuff that happens to the levels as you're going through them. They'll start shifting and changing. And I'm assuming that was all in the interest of making the levels more dynamic than just running around this little arena.
Yeah, we decided early on that the idea of we didn't want it to be a pure arena shooter where you have like this kind of idealized arena, which is, you know, a sphere or a circle or something like that. But we'll find some way to keep adding surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And so every level, we kind of don't want to. It's not like we want to say that every level is going to transform, because that's almost a little bit one note in itself.
Yeah.
But every level has a theme or a concept behind it that's unique, or, you know, different to the other levels.
Yeah, noticing like just the art style and stuff, and how each level has, you know, a fairly unique art style to it, and you're responsible for all the artwork. And, you know, how did you get into like art in games and things like that? Like you said, you were animation at Sony, but
Sega, yeah.
Or Sega, sorry. How'd you translate that into like direct art and stuff?
Well, back before I got into games, I actually wanted to be a character artist. But I mean, I studied 3D modeling and pretty much anything related to 3D graphics. So I was doing modeling, a little bit of environment, animation, rigging, that kind of thing. I ended up getting most of my career spent being a animator. But I've always had this interest and hobby of doing the other side of stuff, like the graphics and modeling and texturing. So it's always kind of been like a side thing of mine, I guess.
So this is kind of like the realization of your dream of like being a character designer and things for a game.
Yeah, now I get to design all the characters, it's interesting as well. It's like, if you look at I'm kind of making do with what I can do, but I think it's very much in that indie spirit. It's about like, what can one person do? And it's like, these characters could be better quality, they could have higher resolution, the environments could be more interesting, but like, it's all about hitting the big purpose of it, not necessarily fixating on if it could have been better or not.
Yeah. And you know, as an indie dev, it's sort of like one of those things, you got to balance what do you want your game to look like, and then what can you afford to make your game look like, and you know, how are you gonna keep that balance there? And definitely, you guys getting on early access is gonna help. You know, like getting that Steam stuff in there quick so that you can get like the market. So you guys won that award, the Level Up, Intel Level Up Best Action Game.
Yeah.
And that, from what I was hearing, was a big push to you guys actually getting on Greenlight during that 1 year anniversary thing. That's
Yeah,
too
yeah.
good. Do you think you guys would have eventually gotten greenlit without it, or do you attribute that to your like success there?
It definitely sped things up. I think Valve mentioned that they pay a lot of attention to awards and that kind of thing, and so it obviously put us more in their sights. But I think we would have eventually got there through. Maybe not immediately, but within a couple of months. Because before that, I would have said our chances are remote. But Valve have really accelerated their green light recently, so I'm seeing a lot more stuff go through. We had a fair amount of votes, but we weren't at the top of the. I don't know. But I think given the way that Valve are working with Greenlight now, that we probably would have made it through eventually.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like Valve decided that they wanted to change the way Greenlight was working, because it seemed like it was like those top 10 games every 2 weeks were getting in, and then everyone at the bottom was sort of stuck there waiting.
Yeah, there was an unfortunate thing where basically another 10 games could come through in a month that would displace people. You know, it wasn't about waiting your turn. You could actually
Yeah, you could get like overrun by that like one game with a, really good high funding, and you just be like blown out of the water.
Zombie Slender Man or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Slender. Yeah, those games come out of the works and they're instant hits with everyone, and you just get blown to the number 100 at the end. So when you guys were making this game, was there ever like a situation where you were afraid you wouldn't have like the resources to finish it?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we quit in February when we decided to actually go for this.
Yeah.
We quit our jobs. We both had savings, which we've been living off since. We had reasonably realistically budgeted for how long that meant we could pay rent for.
Yeah.
And figured out our release date based on that.
We got this long, we got to release now. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And we're not totally far off target, but to be honest, we actually got pretty. We went through a lot of our savings, and it was really good that we got onto early access when we did, because we've had our first payment from Valve and stuff, and it's not a huge amount, but it's enough to keep us going.
Yeah.
We had prize money from the level up thing. Again, not a huge amount, but enough to keep people that are eating noodles going.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it got a little bit tight, but luckily we've managed to I think we're looking pretty good at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very hairy and very scary, because it's like, what are we going to do? I took a job doing some part-time teaching.
Yeah.
Just to help smooth things over a little bit. So.
Yeah, it's really tough out there right now. And like you said, it definitely helps. Every dollar that gets spent on your game, puts that next little piece in there. Lets that last little bit of polishing happen. You know?
Yeah.
And that's definitely the case with almost any indie game. There's never enough time for them to put everything they want with like the budget they have. So they have to, rely on support from the people buying the game. Do you think you would have gone with either releasing before you felt it was completely finished, or you would have like tried to get a Kickstarter going if you ran into an issue where you ran out of money and you were like, you didn't have enough to keep it going, but you wanted to still finish it? Would you have released early and tried DLC, or would you have done like Kickstarter and gone that route, or Indiegogo or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, the reason why we haven't done a Kickstarter ourselves, and we get asked this a lot actually. It's actually gotten to the point that most people say, "So you've already done your Kickstarter?" It's like, no, we're not. So you're going to do it later?
Yeah.
There's an assumption that at some point we'll run a Kickstarter. The main thing about that is that there's a lot of preparation work that goes into those things. I'm not sure how they're just seen, but we've had friends that have done them successfully, and they spend a lot of time basically just running a campaign for the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And that's like a couple of months of development time. So It's a massive trade-off. Like and especially since they're never guaranteed as well. Like, we're a somewhat niche game,
Yeah.
so we always thought that it was a bad fit for that kind of thing. It's hard to explain to someone in a video why Cactus is an important game. It's the kind of thing that you're better off like handing them a controller.
Yeah, like you guys it's definitely a really good idea for you. Like on your early access, you guys have a demo, and I encourage anyone that watches this to try it out because this game is definitely a lot more fun to play than to watch. Because for the people watching, it's definitely just another twin stick shooter, but for the person playing, it's like, oh god, my battery is running out. Gotta match that fire button so I don't die like I just ended up doing. I'm actually about halfway through World 2 right now. So it's definitely one of those games where I could see that being an issue, getting the message across. So your guys' next step is finishing off the levels of this game, and then after that it's getting console ports. And how has that whole process been, like figuring out the porting and all that?
I suppose there's two sides to that. There's the getting, because obviously you have to work with the platform holders themselves. So it's like talking to Nintendo and Sony, and then there's been the technical side as well. The plan is to finish the PC version, concentrate totally on that, and then turn our attentions to getting it onto Wii U, PS4, and Vita.
Yeah.
But we have already I've already done some poking around with the Wii U, for instance, kind of just because we're on Unity as well.
Yeah.
And they have engines and port stuff available for the platforms, and for the most part it's pretty good. But there's a bunch of little gotchas for each platform that are coming out.
Of course. Yeah, nothing's ever that easy.
No. If anyone says there's a one-click deployment process, they're a liar. It's like Java all over again. But no, it's been pretty good. Like, it's good that we've got so much tool support already.
Yeah.
And it's just about working through a lot of the Wii U stuff is just looking at the how to use the Wii U specific hardware.
Yeah, like the gamepad and stuff. You might have your UI elements down there instead of on the TV screen, or you might do some other things with that, because the gamepad is definitely the biggest difference. Like, you could rebind controls all day, but when it adds an extra screen and stuff, you gotta figure something out with that.
Yeah, and obviously you can also support off-screen play, which is nice.
Oh yeah, that's actually gonna be really cool, because
yeah.
You guys don't have online multiplayer, and from what you were telling me a few days ago, you don't plan on having it until you're totally finished with all the versions of the game.
No, it's definitely a post-release thing that happens.
So you definitely want to rely on that whole 4-player couch gaming kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And with that, are you excited for things like the Steam Box to be coming out, where people can play their PC games from their couch easily?
Oh, massively. I think the Steam Box is going to make multiplayer and characters make a lot more sense. We've had a lot of people that don't see the value in local co-op because of the way most people have their computer set up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fair enough. I think it'll actually make a lot more sense on the PlayStation 4, for instance, because suddenly you can grab some more controllers and play the game. And same with the Steam Box. I've got my computer with a HDMI cable that leads to the TV, and so we've got some Xbox pads. They reach the couch. We can kind of sit down and play 4-player, but not everyone is going to have that kind of setup. But with the Steam Box, it should be a lot better.
Yeah, I'm definitely in that situation. My TV is all the way, 1 floor down, and stuff like that, so there's no good way to do that. So if I wanted to play co-op, I'd have to have 4 people in my tiny little computer room, all crammed in. But it definitely seems like it'll be one of those things that comes to fruition on console. And really shows off in console, because this game is really good looking, but it's not so high end that nothing can run it. Like, my computer is not the most over the top computer, and I'm running it on high settings fairly consistently.
Well, an interesting thing about the Intel Level Up competition was we actually only found out quite late into the competition that one of the criteria was it had to run on an Intel 4000 integrated video card.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh.
Well, hope.
And so we're kind of, does it run?
So when you enter the competition, then like that night or something, you're scrounging to find an Intel card and see if it'll work.
We're running around trying to grab who's got a laptop that's got an Intel 4000 video card in it, and what does it do? And it turned out we're actually pretty close, and with a little bit of optimization, particularly on Influx. Influx was the heaviest level at the time because of all the unique geometry.
Yeah.
Because technically each of the blocks was its own thing. So I did an optimization pass on that. We actually got it running pretty much consistently between kind of 45, 30, 60 frames a second on integrated cards. That was on low, of course, but
yeah,
it runs, and it ran really well, and the gameplay was there. So we're really happy about that, actually. And keeping it so it can run on lower systems feels like a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it makes porting a lot easier, that's for sure, because there's always those situations where, the consoles are never up to date with the PCs.
Yeah. And it means, basically, my attitude to optimization as well is anything you can save, anything you can kind of do faster, it means you can do more of.
Yeah.
So like, if I can make the wasps 50% faster, I can have twice as many of them, right?
Yeah, thanks for that, by the way.
I'd always pick like more explosions, more effects, more cool things happening over than like a slightly better looking or slightly, I don't know, I think especially with indie development, that side of the equation comes out a lot better.
Yeah, like if you were some AAA title, you'd be like, how can we make this look flashy? But you want it to work, and you want people to have, a good experience without lag and stuff. But still balancing that, look aspect.
In a AAA environment, you can literally say, let's have 20 enemy variants, and you'll have a team of character modelers who just go away and ZBrush up your high resolution characters, and they'll look gorgeous. For me, I've got I'm just going to model one enemy, but what if I have like 50 of them? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's different ways to get cool, and some of them are more efficient for a small developer like me.
Yeah, like the bigger enemies are probably not as hard to actually model as these little wasps, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Well, they don't have any animation. Actually, that's the main thing.
Well, yeah, but like the models are actually way more complicated than the bigger guys, from just like how intricate they are, and it's kind of impressive that you spent the time on these like little tiny guys.
If you look carefully, they've got little hooky stinger things underneath. They're actually modeled a little bit like mutalisks from StarCraft.
I could see that, but a little bit more robotic. Oops.
Yeah.
This boss always gives me trouble with starch. I'm actually going to show off one of the other bots. I actually prefer Coral for this boss because of her plasma field.
Ah, interesting.
Just for just clearing out those the wasps and getting to the boss.
Yeah, she's great at the wasps, but she really struggles to take down her upright form. Like it's a real.
Yeah, that's what I found, and actually,
really up close.
Just using the plasma field, you can get some pretty good damage off from what I've found. But there's definitely merits to each android, and there's definitely like downsides. Like Cactus's power is really strong, and she has a pretty good like range on her primary, but her secondary has very low range.
It's very high range though.
Her secondary?
Yeah, Cactus's the flamethrower.
Well, I guess it's not as much as like the seeker missiles, at least from my experience.
They do more damage than the seeker missiles.
Like they do more damage. I'm saying it's not as high range. Like it doesn't travel
right, sorry,
as far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's massive damage. It's like I think it's.
Yeah, no. The damage is totally up there, but.
And the ability
there's
to
definitely
like run down multiple enemies.
there's definitely downsides, and there's definitely balance in it. And of course, this boss being the hardest one so far is just absolutely giving me trouble. So when you're coming up with the boss, do you come up with the like how it's gonna look and then base the mechanics on that, or do you come up with mechanics and then decide how it's gonna look?
It's kind of a mix of both. I think the first thing I had decided for this boss was that she was going to control large amounts of wasps.
Yeah.
And somehow out of that came the idea that she should like protect herself and turn into a big ball. And so out of the idea that she should turn into a ball came the idea that she should have like this kind of ballroom dress that kind of has that ball shape to it.
Yeah.
Kind of inside out. And then combined with that, I'm thinking plant. I wanted to give her kind of a rose thorn theme head. And it kind of went back and forth like that.
Yeah, so it's definitely like, oh, I want it to do this, I should have this, and I want it to look like this, so it should be like this. So
yeah, and a lot of it is, I guess, form following function following form. It's
yeah,
I think about the gameplay first, then that lets me think about the visuals, and then the visuals let me think more about gameplay. Everything needs to sort of resonate and connect with each other, and yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I see something that goes, oh, that makes me think blah, then maybe I think, well, maybe she should do that. Like, she's got these clipper claws, maybe she throws flowers at you. It's kind of...
Yeah.
It's not always the most logical connection, but it is a connection.
It makes sense in your head, and that's all that's important to you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Also, it does indeed have controller support. People were asking about it. Now, this'll run with any controller, won't it? Or do you only have Xbox
yes,
support so far?
It's on PC, it'll happily work with Xbox or anything that emulates an Xbox and has the same mappings. It'll also work with the older Logitech dual action ones.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working on some remapping tools that'll let it support a bigger range of. We found some really odd controllers. Basically, we went and bought every controller we could find.
So you guys have like the Ouya lying around and stuff like that. That's just crazy.
Yeah, I think the Ouya maps on. I haven't got one here. A friend had one. I think that maps to X input though or something, doesn't it? So it might work out of the box.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some weirdness in the way the input handling works that meant that we couldn't just natively support everything. On Mac and Linux, it's pretty consistent as we've tested so far.
Yeah.
And yeah. Ideally, we just want everything to work out of the box, but we're going to have a remapping system to handle the weird cases, I think.
Like the Wii mode and stuff that someone randomly wants to play the game with on their PC. Like I was trying to see if I could, because I have an old Wii Pro controller, not like the new ones, and I was trying to see if I could hook it up to my computer to see if it would run on the game, because I figured like that'd be cool.
Yeah,
and you know, not surprisingly, I couldn't manage to get my Wii controller to hook up, but you know, like it's very interesting to see that you're at least looking at like the weird controllers that no one really thinks about, that like that one random person's gonna find and ask for support later.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few things like that. Like if someone, I know how much it kind of sucks to play a game and have it just fall down at one spot where you just have this control that you want to use and it doesn't work, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want that. If I can do something personally about it to fix it, then I will. Because I've been in a situation where, you know, a game has just screwed me over or just not done something that I needed to do. I don't want to do that to other people.
Yeah. So for this boss, because I can't even tell, am I damaging her in ball form or am I just killing wasps?
The ball itself is invulnerable. It's all the wasps.
Okay, then I'm gonna focus more on the wasps, because I was totally like trying to shoot the ball for the longest time and I couldn't tell like at all.
Yeah, that's I need a better effect. I need like a ricochet or something to show that it's. I know what's the sign for no damage? Maybe a little shield effect. That'd be kind of cool.
Maybe.
Like it's absorbing it.
Or maybe like a little like energy field around it. Or something like that. That might be
Yeah, I mean, I gave her a rim light like the androids get when they're invulnerable, but it's very subtle. And you can see that she actually flashes every time you hit a wasp. Like that's showing that's.
Well, that's part of the problem. That's why I couldn't really tell. Is because she's flashing when I'm hitting the wasp and I'm shooting an AOE thing.
Yeah.
So it's hitting her, it's hitting the wasp, and I can't tell what's doing damage. But other than that, this boss is actually really well designed with the multi-phase. And same with the first boss. They're all very multi-phase, and each phase is very unique from the next in its own like little way. Like this second phase, you know, is completely different than the first. But then like the third phase is just more wasps, more you know, pain and suffering, pretty much.
Yeah, we
Um,
go through teaching phases in the bosses. The first wasp ring is the simple wasp ring. There's
yeah,
less wasps, and they're a little bit slower, and they stay in their circle a bit more. And then when she comes back to it, they suddenly she
they go
changes the
absolutely
radius.
insane, and you freak out like I'm doing right now.
Yeah, so this one, yeah.
And of
Same
course,
with the
there's even more phases that I'm being horrible and not showing very well because I'm not pro at this game. But you guys have had some pretty interesting people getting like really high scores on like a lot of leaderboard positions.
yeah. It's been really. I was really interested to see how that was going to go, and it's been really exciting watching people get into it. I love when they get competitive. I love when people live stream their attempts to dethrone the number one and stuff.
Yeah, and actually, if I go to the main menu, there is an active leaderboard of like each level, so there's definitely room for replayability of all of them. Now a friend of mine was asking because I was looking at he was looking at his score, and on the first level, his score is higher than mine, but his rank is only S and mine's S plus.
Yeah.
Is that a
So
glitch, or is that meant to be that way and the ranking is not directly related to your score?
the score is the score is what it's ranked on. The ranking is actually has some criteria to it. So an
Yeah.
S plus means a full chain. So it's possible to
Oh,
drop a link but still get a higher score overall. And there's technically that's valid. So that's why we've kind of done it that way. It's not a glitch as such. It's an
yeah.
odd.
So his score is higher, but he dropped his chain at one point in that level, so he got a worse score overall,
Or you got to he missed out on the S plus.
or
But
the S plus, yeah. So I'm gonna go into what I think is like the most unique level you guys have, which is the what is it? It's checkpoint.
Oh, yeah.
And now, from what I understand, this one is not complete.
Yep.
It's
So
not.
white box graphics.
It's not graphics. So this is definitely gonna change when it releases, but or as iterations come out on early access. But you know, this level is not your conventional arena shooter. It's you're running through waves of monsters to get further in the level, which is definitely a lot different than the rest of the game, where you're more in an arena scenario, and it's actually kind of refreshing to see something like totally new. You know, like it's a completely different strategy when you're running forward and trying to keep moving forward, but you still have to kill the enemies and quickly because you still have the battery mechanic.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of what I was talking about before about trying to find new ways to interpret arena,
Yeah.
and this is probably one of the more out there ones, and it was tricky to do actually as well, like to keep the level not breaking,
Yeah.
and keeping the rules of Cactus, like the battery mechanic, the fact that you have to be able to chain the level when the character has to move through, the fact that it has to support 4-player. There's actually like a series
Yeah.
of gates and stuff. So it's actually like a moving arena that moves forward, so you can never get too far away from each other.
So what actually happens? You're forced to move through the gates eventually, but like I guess you'd have to anyway because of the battery mechanic. But like if one of your players gets stuck behind, they won't actually like get stuck behind the gate ever.
No. Basically, I think there's 3 sections open at a time, and so until all of the players move forwards, the next gate won't open up.
Ah.
So that's another reason why local co-op is important, so you can hit your friend if he doesn't move.
Yeah, you're gonna make us lose and hear that
Yeah, it's
loud
like-
smacking noise. You know. That was actually one of my other questions is, do you think there would be, like, as looking at the level design, would there be, like, a separate set of levels for, like, the multiplayer as you go on? Because I'm assuming it ramps up difficulty as, like, you get more players, because there was different sections on the leaderboard for which mode you were on. Oh, I think he died. Hold on. You know, the hazards of using Skype. I'm gonna keep trucking on while he tries to get back on. If he doesn't come back, I'll I don't know what I'll do. Just gives a chance to listen to the music. The music is done by a man named Jeff Van Dyke, who's part of the team, and he's done a lot of interesting music for the Total War games, things like that, TV stuff. And if you go to their website, you can see like a full list. But they have a very up there music producer, and the music changes as you go. So I'm gonna be quiet for a little bit and let you guys listen to the music. So I mean, as you can see, like the music is really up there, and it's really quite cool. So this just in Australia, maybe under robot attack. We're not sure. It says man at beach. That's alright. Just get back on when, or back in the call when you can. I'll recall you actually.
Oh.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
So I was talking about the music and how you guys have Jeff Van Dyke, who's done a lot of really cool music in the past. And the story you guys have on your website about like how he came was he was gonna help you, and eventually he joined the team full time. Was that basically the idea? Cause like you two left, and then like he came along a little later. Right. Hello? Oh, Tim? Nope. Bear with us. He is in, like, all the way across the world, basically. Maybe him hosting will be easier. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. So you're talking about the
Jeff Van Dyke, your music guy, and how he joined the team and stuff.
Yeah, so that was a because I mean Jeff is a very accomplished composer. He's worked on a lot of big soundtracks and well-known games, and a really good guy. And we actually got in touch with him after we kind of quit our jobs and went on this all-in, asking for advice about how to find a composer, or who what to look for when we were trying to find someone to help us with the music. And he surprised us by asking like if he could be if he could be involved. And yeah, it's kind of like
that's really fortunate actually.
Yeah, and so he's actually a founder of Witchbeam. So there's three of us. So he's all in. He's still doing contract work for other places. He's obviously the not full time on Cactus of us.
Yeah.
But given the way that he works, that's more than enough. He's very, very
well,
productive.
yeah, you don't need someone working on the music 24/7 for like an arena shooter where you have a soundtrack for level, or even like one per world, and it's like enough music.
Yeah, he's also doing a lot of the sound direction. Right now, it's a kind of combination of stuff that was in there before and stuff that he's replaced. So it's in a bit of a transition state. But
yeah,
the new stuff it's really good.
So is he the one responsible for like the explosions and stuff and the laser sounds and things?
Yes, some of them. As
you were saying, like some of them are old, but like he's the one who's like behind some of them, and obviously the soundtrack. And I was letting everyone listen while you were having technical difficulties, but it's very interesting. And according to your website, it's dynamic to a certain extent, where it'll change depending on how you're doing.
Yeah, there's a few different tracks that we're mixing together. Jeff was really keen to explore that kind of system and have these layers of intensity.
So it's sort of like it's sort of a weird game to liken it to, but Bit Trip Runner, where as you get those little red things, the game's music changes and you add like a new layer to the track. And this,
Yeah,
like, depending on how you're doing it, it changes like the levels, but it's still like the same music track.
it's not quite as granular as that. There's not so much components that it layers on. It's actually switching tracks, but it doesn't mean that you get that. The level music tells you when you're riding a good chain and when your score is riding high. You can kind of feel when you're succeeding at a level and when you're dropping off a bit. Like it really
Yeah.
dulls
Like right
down.
now, I sort of feel like I'm doing pretty terrible, and the music's, you know, changed a little to reflect that. It sort of feels like there's a little bit more dead time in the sound.
And then the boss tracks basically have escalation. So as the further you get in the fight, the more the music kicks up. So,
So you guys have that video game trope where as the boss gets, you know, damaged, it gets stronger rather than weaker, like it should in real life.
Well, it gets angrier, right? So
Yeah,
pulling
yeah.
out the stops.
You can use that excuse all day long. You just want to make it more interesting.
Well, it's not like if you imagine how kind of weird a boss fight would feel like if by the final phase he's just like looking all beaten up and you're just wailing on him.
Have you not
It's
seen
not-
Sif from Dark Souls, man? But yeah, I definitely understand how that works. So this level I haven't actually seen yet, and I see there's like this rotating bit, and I guess moving. Oh god, this is gonna get really hectic really fast.
Yeah, this level is going to have a bit. Actually, I want to add another 200% flamethrowers.
It's another 200% flamethrowers. You've heard it here first, guys. The way to make a level better, 200% more flamethrowers.
Yeah. Oh, the other two will be a surprise. They'll
Oh
just
god.
like start up halfway through
god.
the level.
that'll sort of hit the fan really quickly there as the thing switched direction on me and. Oh man. Oh god. That flamethrower just absolutely eats through you if you get caught in it.
Yeah. So checkpoints in a good state. This level is a little rougher. So
Yeah.
some of the levels are kind of they're more about the concept than the actual kind of tuning.
Yeah. Like
And-
I played the last level a bit with the red blocks coming up, and that, you know, it seems like once that's fully in place, it'll look a lot cooler. But it's definitely a very interesting concept where the level's actively trying to kill you, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and in a new way as well. The kind of whole proximity squares.
Yeah.
And that one's tuning is pretty good. Like it plays about the intensity that we want it to.
I don't want to leave this corner ever again. That thing scared me. It's scaring me so much. Oh my god. That thing started like freaking out in the middle. Started spinning all the way around in like half a second. Ugh. These levels get
That's
really
nice.
intense really fast, and that's really good. And
Yeah.
you know, what am I, 10 levels through, 11 levels through, and it's reached points where I'm having, you know, extreme difficulty getting through these. Just looking at this one looks like it's going to be a big pain. So this one has walls that I'm guessing are going to start moving around as I go. And the levels are fairly aptly named, like checkpoint. You know, there's the sort of checkpoint system you get through those gates. Do you think if you made like a bigger version of that level, or like a more advanced version, you'd eventually have a checkpoint system in like the level, or are you thinking it'd be all or nothing, you make it through?
So far we've just been doing all or nothing, which, like I was talking about before about the one-noteness, there's that danger that once you make a level that goes for say 5 minutes, it's actually really difficult to make something that doesn't feel exhausting in a bad way
Yeah.
if you just maintain pressure the whole time. So it kind of tends to be the upper cap for the levels.
Yeah.
But I'm really hoping to do, because we've got an endless mode planned, which will just be kind of
Yeah.
like a go for as long as you can. So that's going to be our exception to that.
What is
It's
it?
just gonna
Endless
be-
mode and boss rush, which sounds
Yeah.
terrifying.
Oh, that's going to be great.
Um,
That's going to be the all 5 bosses strung back to back.
Now, is it strung back to back where you keep the same battery
they'll-
timer throughout, and you're...
They'll drop in as the last one dies.
Oh my god.
I want to
You
do
guys
something
are-
clever with the arenas where they kind of switch on you, but we'll see. That's still pending.
Yeah, well, of course you got to do some refining on your ideas. Let's see. So price point, is $15 going to be the final sell price, you think, or
Yeah. I mean, obviously there'll be kind of Steam sales and stuff, but we
Yeah.
kind of thought we went through a few different kind of options, and we just felt that, especially for what we want to have planned and what we want to have the experience for the final game, we thought it was closer to 15.
hmm So, now going back to the leaderboards, do you guys want that to be like your replay value is getting that high score, getting that S plus rank, working towards, because like this one filament level, the guy who has the highest score doesn't have that S plus rank, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that's actually pretty. Wow. This is why. Ah, man, I'd love to see how he did that.
Yeah, you kind of want to have like recordings of the top ones for
Yeah,
everyone.
but
Um,
I often talk about there being layers to the game in terms of layers of engagement.
yeah,
And the first three, the first one is being able to complete a level, like actually seeing it through to the end. That's a very practical sense. It'll let you continue on the game. It'll let you see the next bit of the content. It's the most simple video game version of
yeah,
of enhancement. The next one, which I'm hoping most people will then kind of feel interested in discovering, is can I beat a level without getting knocked down? Like, can I get through a level,
yeah,
not flawlessly, but like, without taking a hit or without getting knocked down?
yeah,
And then once they get onto that one, the obvious then connection is, what's the highest rank I get? Can I get? Can I get an S plus? How far does it go? And then that's where it gets interesting. Like, at that point, the levels start taking on almost a puzzle quality. Like, you're not, the
yeah,
level, and you're starting to think about how to use the level's uniqueness against it, and how to plan the wave and how to deal with the fact that a bomber's about to drop down and you're going to have to use something to deal with them because you won't be able to take them out with your primary weapon. All this kind of strategy and stuff.
yeah.
And so by the time you're chasing S plus, I'm pretty happy because it means we've kind of really hooked you by that point.
Yeah, by the
Means
time
we're
you
really
sat there,
engaged
like
with the game.
I spent like just before this interview, actually, I spent like 20-25 minutes trying to get S plus on level 1. Like it's really difficult even at that early stage to just keep your multiplier up there, and it's over 120 or something for the first level alone that you need to get, and you can't, the chain thing drops really fast. You really have to be on top of it to get anywhere in terms of like S plus.
Yeah, and you have to start thinking about the enemies carefully in order to, like, you don't just see them as opponents. You see them as like these weak guys I can take out in about this much time, and then I can use that to hit the next guy.
Yeah. Get
And
this much damage done on this guy, kill the weak one, get a little bit more, kill a weak one, start worrying about that. And it's kind of interesting as like the scene sort of develops and more people play, what people are gonna do. Like, is there gonna be sort of metagame for like getting those S ranks and stuff?
yeah, and then the fourth layer on top of that is the leaderboards.
Yeah.
That's once you can S plus levels, you go, well, can I beat everyone? Can I beat other people?
Now, I just noticed in the menu there's a collections thing, and they're all grayed out, so that means they're not in this version. But there's a codex, art gallery, and EX settings. Do you want to go into like a little bit about what those are going to be, and as your Skype dies? um, I'm actually going to turn up the music and let you guys listen to the title track. Well, we try to get him back in the call here. So there's definitely a lot of stuff still not in the game. Just looking at the levels screen, the level select screen, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 levels that aren't even in this build, and everything past World 2 is not complete, so there's still a lot to come. Hopefully Tim can get back in here and answer some more questions. About like the codex and the art gallery. If you guys in the chat have any, pressing questions you want to see or answered, go ahead and ask them now.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
There you go.
think I had a actual router redialed.
Oof. That's interesting.
Yeah, actually lost internet connectivity completely.
Oh, I mean, that's alright. We're connecting from, halfway across the world or even all the way across the world, so.
And we just voted in a government that doesn't want high-speed internet, so.
Oh, no. So, as you were dropping, I was asking about this collections thing, the codecs, the art gallery, and EX settings, and if you'd like to elaborate on those.
So this is I talked about the layers for engagement for people that kind of follow that. How far can they push their skills? The other side of it was just to have, I guess things defined. So the codec was going to, it'll be like our version of the Mass Effect. I think they call it a codec in that as well, don't they? It'll be the encyclopedia of the world. So it'll cover stuff like enemy types and little.
Like what is the Genki star? Or...
Yeah. Little history of the androids and that kind of thing. And it'll kind of unlock during play. Art gallery is going to fairly self-explanatory. And then the EX settings is it's named after some of the Sega games that have used that actually. That was something Nart was very big on. If you've ever played Afterburner, and there's been a few modern recent games that have done them, but they're going to be the kind of bonus modes and the weird things that don't really fit anywhere else in the game.
So like primary weapon only or secondary weapon only kind of modes that like add challenges?
Yeah. There'll be like vision modes, gameplay changes, weird wacky stuff that kind of breaks the game. We've got like an isometric mode which actually turns the whole game into no perspective. So it's just like it looks like Marble Maps.
That sounds actually really cool.
Really
one of the people in chat is saying that they'd like to see like a level creator, and that would be really cool.
Creating levels is really hard.
Making level, yeah. But do you think there's possibility of you guys giving that support for like user generated levels to make your game sort of infinite longevity?
There's a couple of ideas you could go with that. Especially since it's on Steam and you've got the whole idea of what do you call it,
the workshop,
There is the potential to have like complex levels where basically it wouldn't be easy, but you could potentially do something along those lines. The other option I was thinking, which would be obviously more compatible with the consoles, was something like you wouldn't be able to build your own levels, but you'd be able to say arrange your own block pattern kind of thing and build like a proxy level.
So it'd be kind of like Trackmania, where you give them a set of sort of tiles and enemy types and things, and maybe some like basic mechanics to work with, and go wild kind of thing.
Like a really simplified version. I mean, this would all be kind of post-release anyway, but it was a couple of ideas you're thinking about.
So it is on the table, but it's not near future. It's kind of like after the console ports and things like that.
Yeah, it's something I could see myself adding to like support the game going forwards. It would be kind of cool to see what people come up with.
Yeah. Now I asked you a little while ago, like when you were coming up with the art style, and you said like it's the way you like to draw, and like how did you go about like developing the art style into what it is right now with this sort of almost anime cartoony eyes and like the mech sort of suit thing?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I've kind of, I suppose my own art style is that kind of anime-influenced comic style that's kind of fairly, you can see a lot of it in Western comics at the moment, I think. But for the game itself, when I was first building a character, like a little proxy character to figure out proportions, I found that the larger head was reading a lot better. I wanted to have a nice kind of visible presence in the game, and so that's how I kind of ended up with the kind of big-headed proportions, and the rest of it kind of just flew out of that. I did a lot of sketches. I found the kind of bigger eyes were kind of more appealing, and kind of went with that. And then the robot bodies were just, I guess, well, they're all spins on Cactus, who's got this kind of, she's this armored android, and they just kind of spun out of that.
Yeah. I mean, like you can see as I'm actually scrolling through, the body types of the characters are actually different. Like Coral is sort of taller and skinnier, and she's got longer legs than like Cactus does, but they all seem like they have like the same basic parts,
Yeah,
to their
in
suits.
in the game sense, they're all using Assault Android bodies. If you want to,
Yeah.
a little bit of a lore bomb. There you go.
Now there's gonna be 3 more characters that you guys have said. Do you have any sort of, I guess, teasers as to what those guys are gonna shoot and how they're gonna work?
Well, I think I forget if I've mentioned that or someone picked up that the next character is going to be called Aubergine.
Aubergine.
Yeah. So and I forget if I mentioned this before, but she's going to have her gun's not really going to be a gun. It's going to be more like a buddy.
Ooh, that actually sounds really cool. So you're branching way out of left field now, and you're going for like the way different kind of style. And
Yeah.
one of the people in the chat was saying, are there any plans for a melee character?
Not as such. We thought about it. It's the funny thing is that if you make the way you do a melee character in this kind of setting, you'd kind of end up with basically Coral is a melee character because of their shotgun. Basically, you'd end up with, if it was like, say they had a sword or some sort of weapon like that, you would have to do a kind of sweep in front of them, and it would have to have a pretty good range because we've got some pits and stuff that you actually have to attack over.
Ah.
And if you couldn't reach over those pits and hit a turret that was just off the ground,
Oh yeah, I can
then
see
the
that.
character would kind of be useless. So you'd have to give them a fairly good range for a melee attack anyway.
Yeah.
And so it kind of starts eroding that specialness.
Mhm.
That said, though, one of the characters is probably going to have some sort of vibro knife, but that's still pending
Vibro knife.
mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds actually really, really kind of cool.
But I wanted to do something a bit special with that as well. It's not just like a slash attack. It's actually going to be a bit of a movement attack as well.
Let's see. So I was looking and seeing there's several levels that are still not in. Of course, you haven't revealed the final boss's name yet.
And Justice and Venom are working titles as well. Just like Vespula was called Queen for a while.
Yeah. So now, is this gonna be like it for levels that you guys are gonna make, or will there be eventual, extra level packs like, Cactus goes on a new mission to do something?
I would like to. I think it's really going to depend on how it gets received, what people are clamoring for.
Yeah.
But I'd like to do some, I guess, campaign expansion stuff, or little extra stuff. Maybe even side stories for like a particular character or something. But yeah, it would be nice. Right now, all we're kind of planning for is the 25 levels. But once the dust settles a bit, it'd be nice to come back to it.
Yeah. I'm starting to run to like the bottom of my question things. So you guys have a pretty well done options menu, and actually, if I change this to the highest level, I kind of, is there that big of a difference between highest settings and like high settings, and how?
Right. So at the moment, the quality slider, I'm eventually going to break that out into all of the PC kind of options. That was more of a quick fix for getting stuff ready. At the moment, I think highest controls, you should be able to see all the effects on the screen actually as you apply them. They affect things like mostly the post effects and the shadow quality. So highest, I think, has screen space, ambient occlusion, full bloom, all the other audio effects. Low turns basically everything off.
Yeah, I noticed the shadows are a little bit more blocky and a little bit less, defined as I got into the low, and then on highest they're a little bit more accurate and a little bit more smooth.
So, and they make a pretty big. They're kind of stepped in terms of performance. So generally going from if you're not quite hitting 60 at highest, if you step back to high, you should be okay. That kind of thing. You got surround sound.
Well, I have whatever it was defaulted on, but so there's leaderboards in our combined friends. Are those like what it starts at, or is that what it shows you at the end of each level?
That's both kind of. This menu is mostly for the end of level thing. Combined means that it will prioritize showing you where you are on your friends list until you're your highest out of your friends, and then it'll show you where you are on the global table.
Ah, that's actually really neat. So it'll look and it'll see like if you're passing all your friends, it doesn't keep you there.
Yeah. So it'll kind of you just transition naturally onto the global leaderboards, and then otherwise you can force it to friends or global if you prefer. We're kind of still trying to find ways to because you're realizing when you're getting like hundreds and hundreds of people on the leaderboards, it's not the best to show that you're rank 600.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find better ways to try to explain what that means or where you are in the is that a good rank, is that a bad rank, that kind of thing. So I want to experiment with like showing you number of places that you've moved up and that kind of thing. Something that will be a bit more meaningful for a lot of people.
And for a group of like the three of you, this game is very, very well polished, and that's definitely one of like the things that stands out is all the mechanics are, like they could be released now and it would be a full-fledged game, and it wouldn't be like, I don't think in all the time I've played I've encountered a single glitch, and I don't think I've heard of anyone except one guy, the lighting didn't work with his graphics card or something, and I think that was like the only thing I've seen so far.
Yeah.
So.
We've had a handful of glitches, but it's been pretty good. I keep living in fear something's going to go horribly wrong, but yeah, I mean, so far we've actually had probably less bug reports than I get on I've seen on major 80 people games I've worked on. So fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean, it's really important to me to try to make something that I feel proud of and that I feel was polished. So I spend a lot of time going over things.
Yeah, and on the screen right now these are the three devs, and that's their website. Definitely go check it out after watching this because it's definitely worth your time. So that's all my questions that I had sort of set up. Does anyone in the chat have anything that's big and they want to ask? Or do you have anything you want to talk about, Tim? For like up and coming things that like big things that haven't really been seen yet.
I mean, the main thing is I'm looking forward to is I think we mentioned it before, the intro, because I actually started as a cinematic animator, so that was the first thing I got paid to do in games.
Yeah.
So
it's sort of going to be like you're showing off what you've learned how to do.
Yeah, except then I'm going to have to rush it because I have to rush everything, and then I'll be slightly unhappy with it. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be like I won't say a holiday for me, but it'll be nice.
So one of the people in the chat is asking if the game will be easily moddable, and you kind of answered that with like the level editor, but like, do you see people making like custom character models and things, or like custom dialogue?
I mean, right now the game will, like, what we're planning to launch with will not be easily moddable, but it's kind of one of those things that I find interesting as well. And there's a couple of things planned. Like I want to have some form of character customization, probably more like skins than you won't be able to go in and put a special item on every part of the body. Yeah. But they'll be character swaps. And potentially opening that up to some sort of workshop integration would be kind of cool.
Yeah, but so like you could have Cactus, but like in like a dress or something, running around killing a bunch of enemies, or
yeah. And like Cactus with like different hat, different kind of body type, different, like just cosmetic, but yeah.
Now, one thing that I just sort of remembered now is people were talking about how all the characters in this game are female, and how you guys have been having people complaining about that. That actually, doesn't surprise me that there'd be someone complaining about that. But like, how have you guys been sort of reacting to that? Like, did you expect it, or have you been saying like, oh, do we want to, cave sort of and make, one male character?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I expected some of it. I expected people would really not like the art. Actually, I thought that, well, there are some people out there that just see the art and go, "Whoa, not for me," and that's kind of cool. There's, you know,
Yeah.
one of the things for Cactus was actually to not be about space marines in a darkened interior. Like, I wanted to go the other way, and that was on purpose. And so, obviously, there's going to be some people that just go, not my kind of thing. Some people don't like the fact that there's no male characters to play as. The original decision for that was the game was based around Cactus.
Yeah.
She was an existing character, and when I came to add extra characters, I didn't want to. I thought there was this almost a danger that if I added in, like, we add in the next playable character and it's a guy,
Yeah.
that people would almost like look at the character select screen and go, "Oh, there's the default player," and kind of pass over Cactus.
Yeah, so like with
Because it's-
the modern outlook on, female characters versus male characters, you're worried about, oh, this must be just like the character the dev wants me to play, but I'm not going to play that character. I'm going to play this other character because I don't want to play a female lead role.
Yeah, and I didn't want to diminish Cactus's role in the game because it's kind of her game, right?
And with like the
and it-
flavor text, like before each boss, not really flavor text, with the dialogue before each boss, I guess you'd have to write it differently, and people might want to see that male character before your main character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I didn't think it was. It also saves us a little bit of time because the characters are closer to each other, so there's more animation sharing, that kind of thing. It's funny, you actually often hear this from the other side, where they say, well, we didn't put any female characters in the game because then we'd have to do like a new rig and all this other stuff. We've kind of got the reverse
Yeah.
thing. But
Sort of turned
but
it
I
all on
don't
its
feel-
head. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel too bad about it. And every time, that was the thing, the people that have been complaining about it, the way they've complained about it has made me absolutely not want to go and add male characters for them. Like,
Yeah.
it just makes me feel, no, it's fine.
And it's of course it's your three guys. You've been spending, I think, the past 7 months roughly making this game. And it's something you've been spending all your time. You guys quit your steady, well-paying, well, I don't know, well-paying, but like steady pay jobs at a well-known company to sort of go off and follow this dream of yours and stuff. And people are expecting you to make all these concessions towards them.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well. Like, this is where does it? I don't want to say kind of slippery slope, but where does it end? If you say, oh, the game needs to have these elements in it, it's maybe they're not engaging on it for why I think the game is good. Like, maybe they're not really seeing what I see in it. And there's, on one hand, I pay a lot of attention to what people are saying and seeing how they're reacting, and sometimes there's stuff that I go, oh, crap, I should go do that, and I go and add it in next update.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just think, that's pulling away from where I want the game to be. I think maybe we're just on different pages.
Yeah, like there are always those people that are gonna want the game to be easier or the game to be harder or something, and you just can't please everybody.
Yeah. Or like the game to be slower, which is another thing. It's like one of the things about Cactus is that it's at its best when it's high speed and crazy. Like it's a over the top shooter. Yeah.
And it's definitely one of those things where, as an indie dev, you're almost more vulnerable because people are talking directly to you. Whereas when you were working for Sega, it was more they would complain to Sega, and Sega would say to you, make this change, and it sort of didn't matter, but it's more personable.
Yeah, well, I've got an email address. You can look it up and send me an email and complain about something. You couldn't do that at Sega or any of the other places I've worked at.
Yeah. So, what like well-known titles did you work on at Sega, or titles have you worked on that people can like go see and see
Okay.
like what you've done?
Oh man, I don't want to recommend any of the. No, Nat has a point where he makes that and it's true for me for an extent as well. That basically our game history has not been great. We have not worked on great games, and the thing I think which is important for that is that I'm acknowledging that, and that I look at the stuff that I've worked on as they haven't been successes, so that I want to look at everything that we've done wrong and try to figure out what I should have done instead and put it into Cactus. But stuff I worked on at Sega was I shipped the 2012 Olympic Games, the non Sonic one, the one with the people in it.
Yeah, the one that everyone doesn't care about. Yeah.
Yeah. The one that is required so that Sega can contractually release the Sonic one.
Really?
And that's the rumor I heard.
That's actually pretty funny.
It sounds about right? They have to do a... and I also worked on the early part of the pre-production on the Mickey Castle of Illusion remake that recently came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and before that I worked on a few cancelled games. I worked on a cancelled... a tie-in for the Dark Knight, the second Batman film that never came out, actually. That was a long time ago, so I don't think anyone minds me mentioning that.
Yeah.
And before that, I worked for a little bit on LA Noire.
Well, LA Noire was pretty good, actually. So
it was a very big game.
Yeah.
It was a huge production.
Oh, yeah. And you said you worked on animation, and animation is definitely a major part of that game.
Yeah, I worked a lot on the interrogation system, actually.
Yeah,
but,
that's definitely like one of the shining things of that game is like the interrogation sequence, and it's like looking and seeing like, oh, that guy's eye twitched, when I did that, and people are actually freaking out now because you said you worked on LA Noire. And that's actually really cool. But so was it that you were sort of fed up with doing these games that you weren't really seeing as successes, and you wanted to work on something that you could be your own, and that you could say that you'd be proud of saying, like, I was the one who worked on this, and me and these other guys spent long hours working on this, and it made something great.
Yeah, it's maybe almost a darker explanation that I felt like I felt like every company I'd worked at, I'd worked very hard and done really good work, and something had always tripped up the team. Something had always denied the game from being the game it could have been.
Yeah.
And that's very frustrating. It's like seeing, people talk a lot about crunch in the industry, right? So I've seen my share of late nights and overtime meals, and it's devastating to work that hard and see the end result stutter and fall when you don't
see that email like, oh, that game you've been working on for a month, no, we're not doing that anymore. Yeah, I could see that being a very depressing sort of thing to get.
And even when things seem to be going well, like on Castle of Illusion, and there was this kind of sense though that it was turning wrong, and I spent a lot of time in meetings, like arguing with other people about how the game should be made, and it was really wearing me down. It was getting hard to deal with, and part of it was just that feeling of like, and Nat feels the same way as well, that I wanted to make something where I wanted to see what would happen if I got to follow what I thought was right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you just got to convince Nada that it's good.
And that's a lot easier. We're very much on the same wavelength. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's that feeling that I want. Success or fail, Cactus is going to be what I think the game should be.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting. Like, it means that I'll be able to. And I think that's all I wanted. Just a chance to see. What happens if I set out and make this game the way I want it to? Does it come out alright? How does it go? And that's not something you can do in a big company. There's always things in the way. I've worked on teams where everything was going great, and EA cancelled our game because no interest in Wii U. And it's like, oh, okay. So what are we going to do with this excellent game? I guess we'll just put it in the bin. Great. Like, how do you deal with that? Oh, sorry, not Wii U. Wii. It was a weird
Ah,
game.
yeah.
It's years ago.
The Wii U is doing reasonably right now. It's sort of at that stage where once these games that are up and coming are coming out, it'll start selling a lot more.
Yeah, it's all right. Once Cactus is out, no, we'll fix that.
Oh
right?
yeah. Guys, buy a Wii U for Cactus. It's well worth the $515.
It's frustrating though, seeing the publishers are doing the same thing to the Wii U. Like, have you seen the where they're releasing the games later and at more cost than the other, and then they're going, oh, no one's buying the Wii U version. It's like, yeah, because you're dicking them around. It's
Yeah. Well, it's definitely hard for Nintendo at this point because a lot of these big titles are getting these, exclusivity agreements with, Microsoft and, Sony to wait, 2-3 months before they can release on the Wii U and stuff.
Mm.
So you're ending up with the Wii U sort of falling behind, and I kind of wonder where Nintendo's going to go next. That they can, from what I was hearing, you guys were having a lot of, support from Nintendo actually from, porting over, and not so much from like Microsoft. Microsoft's the one with the money to get these big, exclusivity deals.
Yeah, Microsoft is being a bit weird. Because back, I mean, if you remember the how was it E3? Around that time, we'd reached out to everyone basically.
Yeah.
We weren't being picky. This was, we were still on green light. We didn't know what was going to go on, so we're just reaching wide here. We got Nintendo took a while to get back to us, but when they did, they were really nice about it.
Yeah.
Sony wanted to talk about the game immediately and seemed really cool about it. Sony were interesting. They actually gave us feedback. Like, we sent them a PC build, and they actually sent us back notes and said what they liked and didn't like about the game.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
They're not just like approving us in some selection process. They're actually having a look at what we're doing.
Yeah.
Microsoft, we got back a not interested. And we're like, oh, okay, that's cool. So we'll just focus on. Now, a lot of the things changed at E3. Like, they put out this was before they changed to an indie focus, really.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things have changed now. We've actually been, me and Nart have both been contacted at game events now. That we've had a Microsoft guy come up to us and say, hey, you should get in touch with us. You should put this on Xbox One and stuff like that. But they don't get back to us.
so there's those people that they send to their expos, and then not the people that actually matter for getting your game on the Xbox.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of interesting that Sony was so forthcoming with all those things. And when you see people talk about your game and maybe talk about its shortcomings, does it hit you personally, or is it like one of those, oh, I've got to work harder now and do this much more to make the game truly something special?
I'm an artist. I'm way harder on my stuff than most people are. But yeah, I guess I take it all personally because it is my game. But it's if someone sees a problem with it, then that's feedback I need to know, right?
Yeah.
That's yeah. So I've spent enough time working on larger games. I've got pretty thick skin. Like if a lead comes in and says that animation you did yesterday, it's no good, fix it. It's like, all right, what do we do?
Yeah.
You don't have a cry about it. It's just you got to keep going and make it better. So I'm fairly good at taking feedback, and sometimes the feedback you go, that's fair enough. You don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it. And sometimes you go, oh wow, that's totally something I can fix.
Yeah, that thing you find that it's one of those sort of peer review things. You send your game out, and the more people that play it, the more you're gonna find what you're missing.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of really good feedback from watching, sending it out to press and getting stuff back from that, and also from standing in front of TV at trade events and watching people actually play it for the first time. It's been awesome.
Now, are you planning on attending anything in the near future that people should look out for you?
Ooh, no, I got back from GCAP the other week, which was down in Melbourne, Australia. But I don't think we know. See, the next one that'd be on our radar is probably not even sure. Maybe the um, what's the one? What's IGF attached to? That's
Oh, what is it? Penny Arcade Expo? No,
no,
I
it's
don't
the.
remember. I don't know which expo's connected with who. I know a lot of
GDC. That's it.
GDC.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
potentially
that's
GDC, depending on how things go.
yeah.
But we don't know at the moment.
And definitely, you know, it's definitely one of those things where you definitely see people's raw reaction to your game more at a convention than like send this copy and someone plays it for 20 hours before they really make the decision.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing how quickly it can grab people from across the room. And like on a 42-inch television, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I feel like I'm sort of getting like the, not necessarily like the raw deal here from playing on like a 21-inch monitor or something like that, but a TV screen might make this game really pop out, and it might be really cool, but it'll definitely be something to see when it gets on console.
Spidey from the chat
Yeah.
got us all beat. He carted it down to an event and played it on a giant wall projector
Yeah,
at one.
that could be really cool.
On a
Yeah,
4K
McSpidey,
projector.
you guys should make him like your PR rep. He was,
I think he is.
yeah, he was. We did an event for one of our friends because his computer bit the dust, and we were trying to help raise money for him because he's, he doesn't have the money to just replace his computer outright, and he was handing out codes left and right, trying to support it. And it was definitely what got this game on my radar, was him doing that and seeing all the people in our streams playing it and really liking it. And you guys definitely have really good PR for, a small company.
Very, very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Because not at all planned. It was yeah.
I know from personal experience there are definitely some devs that are not, the most social, and it's it's one of those things where if you have the social skills, you should be it, and otherwise you should probably get someone who can to like pitch your game. You guys definitely seem to have it down, and that's really really cool, and people in the chat are knowing exactly what experience I'm talking about. PR Oprah, that's pretty good. So I don't have anything more to necessarily talk about unless the chat has something that's really pressing with them. The Steam page for the early access will be in the description when this gets up on YouTube. Make sure you go and buy this game, it's really good. People are talking about posters and things. Do you plan on having like merchandise go out and go for sale for that?
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, there's probably as you can see, I'm really well prepared here.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I mean,
don't worry.
posters are pretty easy, so that would be very doable. If people are into that, I'd love to do some proper T-shirt runs at some point as well, but I'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, I could definitely see Cactus on a T-shirt being a pretty big hit. Another thing that might be cool is like little miniature models of the characters, things like that. Apparently, Outlaw Broom is gonna name his second child Cactus.
I don't think you should name a child Cactus. That's not going to work out well for them.
Yeah. Yeah, people in the chat are asking for signed posters from you, and I mean, like, that's really what it comes down to is, when a dev really becomes personable, like you guys are when you're coming out and doing these things, it's sort of like a whole new level of gaming. When you're stuck on like the AAA stuff, you don't talk to the people, you don't see like how they react to your product, like, and
well, the funny thing is, as in a bigger company, you totally see how people react to the comments. Everyone's trawling the forums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there are very strict policies in place about do not post do not post comments to
Don't
people
reply,
on forums.
yeah.
Do not respond. Yeah, you're leave that to PR, and then PR watches the message somehow or something like that. It's
Yeah.
amazing how a big company can actually be less efficient than two guys.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like you see like if someone like starts cursing out your game or something on like the Steam forums or something, you can go in there and react and say like if you don't want it, don't buy it or something like that. And this is definitely a lot different than a AAA company where they'll give you the same message like, if you have any complaints, email us at this email address and we'll get back to you, and then
That's it. That's the other thing. I don't want to put spin on things. If someone doesn't like the game because they're just not into that game, I'd rather the demo. It's a great representation of what the gameplay's like. If you play it and you go, this left me totally cold, like
no harm done. It's what it is.
It's not like the final game it'll be better, it'll be bigger, it'll be more polished, but it won't be fundamentally different. It's actually a really fair demo, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of gives you a proper taste.
Now, how much is the demo of like the game as it is? Because like, I haven't actually played the demo because I got the game outright, but like, how much of the game do people see in the demo?
It is the it's what is it? Descent. Let me see if I can remember. Descent.
Just so that people can see what he's talking about. So, Descent's the first level after the tutorial.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's got the tutorial as well, of course. Let me see here. So it's Descent, Filament, Influx, and Embryo, I think.
So you even put a boss battle in there, and that's a pretty good chunk of the game. Yeah,
you even get Starch. She unlocks after Embryo, and you get to play through the levels with Starch.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good. Like right now, if you've got the demo, you get you get the tutorial and then 4 proper levels.
Yep.
And then if you get early access, you double that with finished levels, and you get a bunch of unfinished levels as well, and kind of pushing to add more features and stuff, and the leaderboard stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's just going to keep building.
Yeah, of course. So what's your guys like plan sort of release schedule, like rough times of things to come out and stuff like that? Like, obviously you're gonna have all 8 characters eventually and things like that. Like, when can we start expecting to see more, things being put in?
So next content, like next update, I'm hoping to have at least a few more levels in place, like White Box, maybe one more dress level. I'm working on a checkpoint at the moment, actually.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in progress. And I would like to see the next playable character in.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of pending on things. I'm okay with releasing it in an unfinished state, but I want it to be in a representative state. I want you to be able to play with it as a character and go, okay, this is what it's about. If we have to tune something, that's okay, but nothing broken, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so you want like the art, you want what the character is probably gonna look like final, and you want like the mechanics there, but you're not necessarily sure like this gun could be totally underpowered or overpowered.
We'll kind of have it in the ballpark, but yeah, there might be some adjustments we make, some edge cases that just people really don't like, but yeah, I don't want to drop anything. It's kind of funny, like we say, early access. It's work in progress, but I don't want to drop anything broken. I just want to.
Yeah.
It's like under construction, not on
fire.
That's
definitely a big thing in early access. Is like, where do you sort of draw the line as like how polished should it be before I put it in my game? Because it's early access, but I don't know if I want to test the people playing the game to realize that.
It's also about letting. That's the other thing about early access is that anyone who has an interest in how games come together, it might be interesting just to see, like our white box levels and that kind of thing. So it's kind of part. We had people at trade shows who were like, "I just want this game. I want this game right now." We're like, "Well, all right."
Yeah, and you're like, "Okay, well, here you go."
Yeah.
That's kind of one of like the cool things about early access. It gives people a chance to play the game. Right now they see all this cool stuff, all this hype trailers, and they see it on the show, and then they can go home and buy it, and it's not finished, but it's something to sort of keep you tied over until the game actually releases.
Yeah, and then getting early with thoughts about how it's playing and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tricky. We do a lot of testing ourselves, so we don't get any huge surprises when someone goes on the forum and says, "Hey, did you know that Holly's totally broken? Like her balance is really wrong." We kind of going, maybe you should like play a few more rounds with her because we know she's not that bad. But it's still really good. Some communication, big ones actually, like the Vespula. Your confusion about whether she could be damaged as a ball is a really interesting thing. I don't want to change the gameplay, but I do want to make that state much clearer.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I helped you out with that, because that was actually something that like I was asking like one of my friends who's been playing the game a lot longer than I have actually, who also got it at the same event I did, and he was saying that yes, it's about hitting the ball, not about hitting the wasp, and I'm like, are you sure? And there was no like definite answer, so it's definitely one of those things where it's functional and you can sort of tell what you have to do, but it's not the most clear.
Also, I think there was someone asked earlier about the names of the bosses.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the androids are all named after plants. The bosses are all named after animals. So
it would have been kind of cool if you named them all after like different like weed killer chemicals.
Oh wow! Yeah, Agent Orange.
Yeah. DDT. No, that's really pest control, but
yeah.
But yeah, that would have been kind of neat. But yeah, animals, plants.
Like a robot cowboy.
Yeah. Now, you called that one enemy Wasp. Do all the enemies have names? And will that be like a thing that happens like with the release of the Codex? Will they all sort of have like names and like why they were built or something?
Yeah. Well, part of the fun is going to be trying to come up with explanations for why they existed on a non-military ship in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, they're all repurposed and stuff like that. Like the I see, and I'm going to reveal all the internal names. Yeah. Obviously, all the enemies have names. The little spider bots, they're called kegs. Because they look like kegs on legs. That's actually the explanation. And they're like the general purpose robots. Like they're like because they're four-legged, they can walk all over anything. They can climb things. So they're used all over the ship. There's huge amounts of them. And their tops can be refitted with different modules. So that's why they've just refitted a bunch of guns on some of them, and the other ones have just got like those big unpacking claws, and they're just like ripping at you, and the melee ones. Yeah. So that's their kind of explanation. And the other ones, I call them wasps because a lot of people call them bees, which is kind of cool because it hangs out with But then we called the boss Vespula, so I guess they're wasps.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big guys are called bombers because they shoot bombs. Except the bombs are called mines because they're more like mines than anything else. So it's really a bad name.
So, in the end, you were just plant humanoids. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
The Codex will have a little backstory. I always love. Do you read through the Pokemon explanations?
I've read through some of them, but is it like that style where it's like it tromps through the forest and often seen here and here kind of thing?
Not quite so much. I love the fact that they're so kind of batshit. Like they're often some really random detail that has nothing to do with anything. Like they use their psychic powers to dismantle berries or something. It's like, what? No, they don't. Yeah. I've never seen them do that attack.
Yeah.
But I'd love a little kind of factoids about how the robots worked in the original ship. I think would be cool.
Yeah. And you talked about keeping the game sort of light. Will those descriptions be sort of humorous in nature, or do you think they're going to be more like like this robot used to unpack boxes and now it's got sharp metals ready to slice your head off or something like that?
It'll be a mix of like interesting, I think is the most one. I want them to be entertaining to read. I don't want them to just be dry. This is a labor bot. It performs actions on the like the little robots, the dog robots. Some people call them toasters. Nart wants to call them Fidos. He wants that to be their official designation. But they like if you never really see them, but before they shoot rockets, they actually like wag their tails and stuff. They look like they're happy to see you.
Hmm.
So there's little details in there.
Yeah, and that's definitely something cool, and it's kind of neat that you've already got it like in the UI, like that there's going to be a codex and an art gallery. For the art gallery, is that going to be like your concept like drawings and things? Because I've seen some of your artwork on Twitter and stuff, and I saw like the thing you did for Halloween. Will it be stuff like that, or will it be like 3D character models you can look around and see, or like
It'll
a mix?
be a mix.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. It's gonna be concept art. It's gonna be illustrations, and it'll also be renders from various stuff. Like I did a 2-meter banner for a trade event, and you know, that's a pretty cool picture.
Yeah.
I think there's that wallpaper of Cactus facing off against Embryo. Those ones, like, so I'll just kind of collect up what I've got, but I'll do some new stuff as well. We've got a lot of new characters to go in.
Yeah, I've seen other games where they'll do like some fan art they've seen like around like Paranormal Activity in the credits. They have some fan art that goes through from like random people.
Yeah, I've been hitting up a few people about fan art and stuff actually. So I do want to have some stuff. Not
Yeah, I
from
can
those.
recommend a few people for you actually. They do some pretty
Yeah,
cool stuff.
if anyone wants to get in touch, yeah, with me.
Jens, user resources, Dracula Fetus, get him on it.
We can work something out. We can. I'm talking to some indie game, other indie games about art trades actually, which I thought would be kind of fun.
Have Cactus cameo in some other game. That might be cool.
Just like take a go of drawing their characters and stuff. But,
Alright, Jens is tweeting at an artist as we speak, so. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I've got to say. I don't know if the chat, some like people have been showing up as we've been going. If anyone in the chat has anything, anything more they want to ask, any like pressing things, you might be able to like stick around in the chat in a little bit while I do some more stream things, and answer those questions.
Yeah.
So I'm actually gonna, say bye to Tim here. For the YouTube video. For those of you at Twitch, I'm gonna keep streaming stuff. So thanks for coming on. Definitely a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm sort of excited to see where Cactus goes.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me, and it was a really good interview.
Yeah. I told you like half an hour, and it's been quite a bit longer, but definitely lots of fun. All right. I'll have to go